We usually think of our core self as this deeply hidden, purely internal thing, right? But what if the secret to actually changing who you are on the inside requires stepping right out into the open? Today, we're going to explore the surprising science behind how being watched by others doesn't just change your behavior in the moment, it literally rewires your self-belief.
Okay, let's start by validating a feeling I know we've all had. You know that highly relatable, sometimes completely paralyzing anxiety of walking into a crowded room and feeling instantly judged? Like maybe you drop your pen or you realize you're totally overdressed, and suddenly your brain is screaming that every single pair of eyes in the room just locked onto you. It's a completely universal human experience, but why on earth do our brains manufacture this intense feeling of being under a microscope? Well, this feeling is actually rooted in a psychological concept known as the imaginary audience. Psychologist David Elkind coined this term way back in 1967. Basically, it's a state where you genuinely believe multitudes of people are just constantly watching and judging you. Now, Elkind originally flagged this as a classic sign of adolescent development, that teenage egocentrism where you feel like you're the star of your own 24/7 reality show. But as research shows, we adults absolutely carry exaggerated versions of this right into our everyday lives. We take mundane things like ordering a coffee or posting a quick update online, and our brains turn them into this stressful, high-stakes theater. We literally feel like unvoiced critics are everywhere.
And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates what we call the spotlight effect. It's an egocentric bias where we just massively overestimate how much other people are actually noticing our appearance and our actions. There's this famous study from the year 2000 by Gilovich and his team that proved this in the best way possible. They literally had participants put on a deeply embarrassing t-shirt, we're talking a massive glaring picture of the singer Barry Manilow on it, and then made them walk into a room full of strangers. The people wearing the shirt guessed that a huge portion of the room noticed it, but the reality? Almost no one did. People are usually way too wrapped up in their own stuff to notice yours. We anchor our judgments on our own intense self-awareness, and we totally forget to adjust for the fact that others simply aren't paying that much attention to us. But here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of seeing this intense social awareness as a burden or just this annoying source of anxiety, what if we completely reframe it? What if we can actually use it to our advantage? To do that, we have to look at how our brains process private actions versus public ones. Think about it. Private actions, the stuff you do when literally no one is watching, are anonymous. They're highly discountable. Your brain just kind of shrugs them off and forgets them. But public actions, oh, those carry weight. They are accountable. They are highly monitored by our social brains. And, as we're about to see, they have the power to permanently alter our private identity. So, let's dive into Section 1, Public Acts, Private Identity. This brings us to the actual scientific mechanism behind how stepping into the spotlight can accelerate your personal growth. And for this, we're looking at Diane M. Tice's groundbreaking 1992 research on what she called the looking glass self. Now, psychologists have known for a long time that our self-concepts naturally resist change. We basically like to stay exactly who we are. But Tice asked a profound question. Does the mere presence of an audience provide the motivational kick we need to make actual, lasting shifts in our self-concept? She essentially set up an experiment to find out if doing something in public has a bigger impact on who we think we are compared to doing that exact same thing in totally private isolation. And the data here is just wild. Tice asked participants to portray themselves as emotionally responsive, which basically means being highly in touch with their feelings. Half the group did this privately and anonymously. The other half did it publicly, fully knowing they were being observed and identified by someone else. Afterwards, she measured their actual private self-concept. The results are striking. The public group rated their true self-responsiveness at 19.1, while the private group was lagging behind at only 14.9. They performed the exact same role, but it had a massively different internal impact on them, all simply because an audience was present. So why does this happen? It all comes down to a crucial psychological process called biased scanning. Here's what your brain is doing behind the scenes when you try out a new behavior. When you act a certain way, it triggers your memory to start scanning your past for evidence that, hey, you've actually always been this way. But here's the catch. In private, your brain is super lazy about the scanning. If you act out going alone in your bedroom, your brain goes, who cares? And might even remind you of all the times you were shy. But in public, accountability kicks in hard. Your brain immediately recognizes the social stakes and is forced into this rigorous, highly motivated hunt for past memories to back up your new public persona so you don't look like a total fraud.
The audience literally magnifies the impact of this scanning, which is what makes the new trait feel undeniably real to you.
I love how Tice beautifully put it in her research. She said, the presence of others isn't just a mirror reflecting us back, it's a magnifying glass, right? The awareness of others focuses the sunbeams of our self-perception. What you see in yourself while other people are watching has this extraordinarily powerful, completely disproportionate impact on your self-concept. Basically, when you act out a role in front of an audience, the high stakes of social reality literally force your brain to accept that persona as your actual truth.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, Designing Your Future Self. Since we know that public visibility practically forces our brains to internalize behaviors, we can actually use this. We can build an actionable blueprint to intentionally pick environments that support our long-term personal growth. You can literally design your future self using a really practical step-by-step method taken right from Tice's third study. Step 1, choose a public setting where you expect to have future interactions with the audience. Knowing you're going to see these people again dramatically increases how much your brain internalizes the trait. Step 2, and this is absolutely vital, use self-referenced anecdotes. So don't just go play a completely fake character, actually draw on real, even if they're minor, episodes from your own past where you showed the trait you want to grow. And finally, Step 3, make the presentation public. This specific combo, your own real memories, an expectant audience, and public accountability, is the literal scientific recipe for changing your internal identity. Let's picture how this shift actually plays out in the real world. Imagine someone who's always viewed themselves as a shy wallflower, but they desperately want to become more outgoing. Now, if they just sit alone in their room reading self-help books, nothing's really going to change. But if they intentionally go to a professional networking event, a public setting where they'll definitely see these same peers again, and they deliberately step into the role of an extrovert, something magical happens. They introduce themselves, drawing on a real past memory where maybe they successfully led a small project at work. By doing this publicly, their brain rigorously scans for proof of their extroversion to ensure they don't look out of place. As they keep evolving through social settings like this, their brain physically internalizes that outgoing persona. It stops being just an act, and it becomes their permanent, private reality. And this takeaway really just sums up everything we've been talking about today. Identical behaviors are internalized much more strongly when observed by others than when private or secret. If you are trying to break a bad habit or you're trying to build a positive new one, working entirely in isolation is literally the slowest, least effective way you could possibly do it. Without that interpersonal context, your brain just has no social motivation to lock in the change. But leveraging public visibility, even if it triggers a little bit of that imaginary audience anxiety at first, that serves as the ultimate psychological tool for intentional self-growth. We spend so much of our energy worrying about the spotlight effect, right? Just completely terrified that people are judging all our flaws. But the science tells us that this very same spotlight is actually the forge where our identities are created. The audience is not your enemy. It's the magnifying glass that makes your desired changes permanent. So, keeping that incredible psychological power in mind, I want to leave you with this final thought. Who will you choose to become in public tomorrow?